I start by jointing and planing a chunk of mahogany. Next, I lay out my joinery for a very special neck joint called a bird's beak. I decided to go with this joint instead of the standard scarf joint because it's stronger and I think it looks much better in the end product. I'm using a combination of power and hand tools to pull this joint off. The bandsaw is great for roughing out this weird compound cut that I need to do. I then use a table saw and my tenoning jig to make a vertical cut as well as a 15-degree cut for the headstock angle. The headstock piece itself is cut without changing the blade from 15 degrees, so as to accommodate the neck. Now I'll use my dovetail saw to cut away the excess material from the tenon cheeks at exactly 90 degrees. The tenon is further refined with a really sharp chisel and an 8-degree block to maintain a consistent angle. I built this little jig for the sole purpose of routing out a mortise in the headstock that will accommodate the neck tenon. This entire project has been half guitar building and half jig making. Next, I will test fit the headstock on the neck and remove excess material as needed to get a nice snug fit. A nice advantage of using this neck joint is that it makes carving this diamond volute feature a whole lot easier. Now, the glue up for this joint is a bit awkward, but I found this clamping method to work pretty well. And once the glue is dry, the excess tenon material can be easily removed with the block plane. I will now finish the rough construction of the neck blank by gluing on a stack of blocks from the original piece of mahogany. This will become the heel of the guitar, and I'll rough cut it out with the help of the bandsaw. Now is the opportune time for creating the neck joint using yet another jig. This is based on the Robert O'Brien neck joint routing jig, so check out his video if you want more information on how this works. Basically, it sets up a neck angle based on the theoretical difference between the height of the fretboard and the height of the bridge. With my handheld router, I use a straight bit followed by a dovetail bit to cut out the mortise on the guitar body. Now I'll turn this thing around and focus on the tenon side. So the neck is being held in place at an angle determined by the jig, so all I have to do now is cut the joint. Okay, so now that the neck has been fit to the body, I'll mark out the depth of the heel cap and cut it to size. Now the neck is as far as I can get it for the time being, so I'll change gears a bit and work on the inlays. I start by laying out the inlay in line with the center of this headstock veneer. I'll then secure the pearl pieces temporarily by placing a small dot of Elmer's glue on the back of the pearl. Now, I apologize for how dark this footage looks. I swear, my shop lights are on full blast, but the headlamp I was using is far brighter than the overhead lights. With the inlay position, I can easily trace the outline of the pearl using a marking knife. The chalk just makes the knife lines a bit more visible. Now comes the fun part of cutting out the inlay cavities. I'm using excess rosewood dust as a filler for any gaps that may exist between the pearl and rosewood. Some water-thin CA glue is added to permanently secure the inlay in place. The method I'm using for the fretboard inlay is identical to how I did the headstock inlay, albeit a bit easier to pull off. So this was actually my first time doing inlay for any project ever. And I have to say, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and look forward to more opportunities to hone this technique. With the inlay done, I will now attach the headstock veneer with the inlay to the mahogany neck. I also decided to use a maple veneer to add a little bit of extra contrast between the rosewood and mahogany. Now I will cut away some of the excess neck material using the bandsaw, and will further refine the taper using a flush trim bit at the router table. Now this part is probably unnecessary, as I ended up using the fretboard as a routing template anyways, but hey, at least I got a bunch of fun looking wood shavings out of the process. I figured this would be a good time to drill out the holes for the tuning machines. It's practically mandatory to use sharp drill bits to avoid tear out on the rosewood, since that would be a pretty big bummer at this stage. Next, I will glue on the fretboard. This is pretty straightforward, and I'd say the most important part is to use some locating pins or some method to prevent the fretboard from sliding around during the glue up. And here I'm copying the fretboard taper to the rest of the neck, which makes the previously shown step redundant. With the fretboard flush to the neck, I will install the fretboard dots. This part is really straightforward. All you have to do is use a drill bit the same size as the side dots to execute this inlay. So for this guitar's fretwork, I used a plastic hammer to install the frets, so I prevent denting them. I'll then use a pair of nippers to remove the excess metal. Alright, so this is now my favorite part of this entire guitar project, carving the neck. This process essentially consists of setting up two profiles and blending those points towards one another, as well as outwards to the heel and headstock. I start by using edge tools to quickly remove material. I found that a block plane is amazing at this job. After edge tools, I'll go to rasps and files, before finally finishing up the neck carving using sandpaper. It's my tendency to jump around and work on different points of the neck. In the end, the whole carving gradually comes together. I suppose I'll be quiet for a little while and just let you enjoy the carving process. Alright, the neck is complete. Here's a sneak preview of the third and final part of this series, where I will show you my process for applying a high gloss finish as well as the final setup of this guitar. All of that and more coming soon. Thank you.